So I want to move on to the Philadelphia Eagles and the fact that they're going to be trading A.J. Brown. Like, let's just be 100% honest with ourselves here. Like, are people still fooling themselves into thinking that A.J. Brown still wants to be in Philadelphia, that he still wants to be on the Eagles, and that the Eagles aren't going to trade him? No, the Eagles are going to trade him when the compensation meets the realistic salary cap implications. This is what I mean. Like, I think they're going to trade him after June 1st. That's what I think is going to happen. I think Howie is okay waiting to get a pick in the 2027 draft. I don't think it's going to be a first round pick. I don't think they're getting a first round pick for A.J. Brown in the 2027 draft. I don't see that happening. Maybe they could get a first round pick in this draft. I don't know what happened with the negotiations, but I think if it's just a first round pick, that 31st overall pick for A.J. Brown, I think that would be a fair trade for both sides. Because like when we look at this, A.J. Brown is a guy, I think he's going to be 28 years old this year, if he's not 28 already. He's a guy who has had injury history in the past. He's on the back end of his prime. And that's where I look at this and I say, yeah, you're probably looking at a player that's worth that 31st overall pick and maybe an extra 4th round pick. But I don't look at him like, here's the difference between A.J. Brown and Jalen Waddle, because when Jalen Waddle got traded, I saw people say price for A.J. Brown went up. I disagree with that, because Jalen Waddle got traded for a 1 and a 3 because that's what Jalen Waddle was worth to the Denver Broncos. A team was willing to pay that type of capital to get Jalen Waddle, because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think the Dolphins really wanted to trade Jalen Waddle. I think they wanted him on their team, but they got a trade offer that they really liked. And they said, yeah, this is probably something that we need to explore. In Philadelphia, it's different. A.J. Brown does not want to play for that team. Like, I think it would bring down the team so much if A.J. Brown is on this team come August. This is, by the way, like, I kind of hate when we do this. When, I'm seeing a lot of Eagles fans on social media do this. Like, we got to stop with this whole thing where, when a reporter reports something that they're probably hearing from the agent and the player that's probably 100% accurate, like Diana Rossini's doing, you turn around and you say, oh, that reporter, nah, they're not credible, but you're credible, right? You who has no connections to anybody within the Eagles organization or the A.J. Brown camp, you're credible, but Diana Rossini isn't. That's funny. But she reports something and then somebody else reports something that you like. That's the actual reporter. That's an actual insider. No, they're just reporting something you like. That's why you look at them like that. In reality, Diana Rossini's probably right. The Eagles are going to trade him. And when they do, like, I need to hear apologies for her, because the slander she's been receiving, even though she's been right this entire time, the Eagles have been trying to trade A.J. Brown. That's why you hear all of these reports come out about a potential trade for A.J. Brown, because the Eagles are trying to trade him and A.J. Brown wants to get up out of there. Like, and here's the thing, the A.J. Brown slander also needs to stop, because I hear people say, oh, well, in the San Francisco game, A.J. Brown, he dropped passes from Jalen Hurts. Okay, so we want to bring up the times where A.J. Brown dropped passes from Jalen Hurts, right? But we don't want to bring up all the times where Jalen Hurts was throwing him ducks and A.J. Brown was bailing him out. Nobody wants to talk about that. They just want to talk about the drop passes, but they don't want to talk about all the time. And trust me, the amount of times that A.J. Brown has bailed out Jalen Hurts has far outweighed the times where A.J. Brown dropped Jalen Hurts' passes. Far outweighed it. So that's what I want to get through. But I'm sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent here. I actually think the Eagles trading A.J. Brown would actually be the best thing for them, because you don't want a disgruntled player on your football team. Because I think there was a promise made between A.J. Brown and the Eagles front office when he was making all that noise around the time where there were reports that he wanted to be traded. I think what the Eagles organization said to A.J. Brown was, keep your trap shut. Do not keep talking, because you're going to bring down your trade value. It's going to make it harder to trade you. And if you stay quiet, come the offseason, we'll figure it all out. But right now what the Eagles are doing is they're trying to make it make sense for them. But I think ultimately the realization that they need to come to is they're not going to fleece anybody on this one. General managers are looking at this situation saying, oh, all those times where you fleeced other general managers and you acted all cocky about doing it, all those times, your fan base gashed you up and made you feel great for fleecing other general managers. Now you want sympathy from us? Oh, no, you got to do something about this A.J. Brown situation, because you can't have this guy in your locker room. You can't have this guy at your training camp. You can't have that. So we're not going to bail you out. This is the trade compensation. Either take the compensation or have somebody who does not want to play on your team that is going to bring down your locker room. That, by the way, you probably made a promise to the player and his agent that you were going to trade him. No, you got to deal with that. I mean, good for these general managers. And by the way, I think Howie Roseman is tremendous. I really do. I think people, the biggest problem that I have about the Howie Roseman narrative is that I don't think people give him the most amount of credit where the most amount of credit is due. Where I give Howie Roseman a ton of credit is his ability to make this is what I mean. His drafts, fantastic. Pro personnel scouting, fantastic. Like his ability recently, over the past few years, 2025, they drafted Jahad Campbell. We'll see what happens there. Looks promising. 2024, Mitchell and DeJean in back-to-back picks. 2023, Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith in back-to-back picks. 2022, Jordan Davis, and they traded for A.J. Brown in that draft, which was, he was an undervalued piece at that point. 2021, they drafted Devontae Smith. I mean, they've done so well in the draft recently, like in the early rounds more specifically. They probably need to do a better job in the later rounds, but they make up for that with like impeccable pro personnel scouting. Like when you talk about Zach Bond, Mekhi Becton, CJ Gardner-Johnson back in 2022, he was an undervalued asset. They traded for him. There's so many times where they've been able to find players when it comes to the pro personnel side of things that aren't big name players, but were gigantic, and I mean gigantic pieces for their football team that season. So that's where I think Howie deserves the most amount of credit. Not adding 7 void years to contracts and pushing cap down the line that eventually they're going to pay for, right? Like this whole thing where, the cap doesn't exist. No, it exists. And once these players retire, once, Lane Johnson and Dallas Goedert, they end up moving on, and the players that they have that they kept pushing the cap down the line for, you'll say that's going to be a situation that's not going to be fun to be in. But that's besides the point. A.J. Brown's going to get traded. I think people need to stop with being in denial about this whole situation. He doesn't want to play for the team. He does not want to be there. And I think the Eagles have given him assurance that they're going to trade him. And that's what's going to happen.